Mhm. So, good morning, folks. This is the Senate Agricultural Committee and Friday, January 26th. Um, we have on the agenda this morning uh, Rosie Kruger and Anna Horton. We're gonna get a report from our in regards to our meals program in the school. We also have with us several people from the Northeast Kingdom Collaborative who it's all virtual today, this morning from 9 until 10:30. We have a few people that will be uh, meeting at Canada when we finish with Honora and Rosie that may have some questions for us in regards to whatever. And so we'll, I guess we'll start off with you, Rosie. We'll introduce ourselves and then we'll get a report from you, general, how it's going, the federal program, how that's working out, how it's working out, good or bad for our children, and go from there.
Brian, yep, Brian Collmore representing the Rutland District.
Brian Campion, Bennington District. Rich Westman, Whale District.
And I'm Bobby Starr from Orleans District, and Irene Renner is from the Milton, Burlington, Chittenden North District, and she's meeting with some students from, I believe, St. Albans School right now, but she'll be joining us in a few minutes. So anyways, welcome, Rosie, and it's good to have you with us, and we'll turn it over to you.
It's good to see you all. For the record, I'm Rosie Kruger. I'm the State Director of Child Nutrition Programs at the Agency of Education. So I thought I would start today by telling you about how the Universal School Meals Act implementation is going. Senator Campion has heard this a little bit already. I was in Senate Education a couple weeks ago speaking about that. So a little bit of a repeat for him, but we'll start there. And then I can tell you about some recent updates from USDA that have impacted that implementation in a positive way. I have a lot of good news for you today. And then from there, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have. We could talk a little bit about the local foods incentive as well and how that's going. So that's what I plan to talk about today, but I know you generally just wanted to hear about school food programs, so I'm also happy to answer any general questions that you've got.
Yeah, you can emphasize and expand the good side of things. We get a lot of bad news, so any good news is very welcome.
Yeah, so I can tell you, you all were very deliberate in Act 64 and in its predecessor, the one-year pilot bill on universal meals. And you really worked with us closely on getting the details of both those bills right. And I just want to say that I really appreciate that, because that means that this year's implementation of the permanent universal school meals legislation has gone really smoothly. And so by doing it in kind of a slow, deliberate fashion with a one-year pilot where we were able to see how it was going and come back to you with some suggestions for technical changes that would make things run more smoothly. And then, you all listening to that feedback and making those changes, the actual implementation this year has gone extremely smoothly. And so really happy to be able to report that back to you. And I will say that I am on an email chain with some state directors in other states that have been implementing these policies where their legislatures kind of looked at the big picture, but didn't necessarily work with them directly on the details, and things are not going as smoothly in those states. So just want to give you all some good feedback for taking that really deliberative approach on on that implementation. So overall, participation in the school meals programs is up slightly this year from last year. As you remember, last year was that pilot year of universal meals, but we were still dealing with a lot of school closures that fall due to COVID and other respiratory illnesses. So we weren't sure how that was going to impact, participation on an ongoing rate. So our participation rates are up by a couple percentage points this year. I think we'll keep an eye on that over the next several years and see if we have a general upward trend, or if, this year is sort of a leveling out year and we've gotten to where we're going to be. Our final costs for school year 22-23 were a little bit low, or were quite a bit lower than we had appropriated, or you had appropriated. You had appropriated $29 million originally, and that was based on kind of a midpoint in our conservative estimates about what would happen if no households returned school meals applications and all students started participating, or what if the same number on the low end, what if the same number of children participated as previously, and the same number of households returned applications as had previously when meals were being charged for. And what we found was that some families returned applications last year, not as many as when meals were being charged for, but we did still have some folks returning applications. And that was in part because we did a really big statewide push to get folks to return applications last year. So that helped bring the costs down. And then we found that participation went up some last year. As of this year, I think this school year, 23-24, we're seeing like a 25% increase over where we were in school year 2019 when we were last charging for meals. So there's definitely been an increase, but it's not every child eating every day.
Say 25% over the year 19.
Over school year October 2019, if you compare that. I'm still kind of refining some numbers there before I give you that estimate officially, but that's kind of approximately what we're seeing. So a significant increase for sure, but we're not seeing every child eat every day, which we thought was possible. The meals are free. If the policy worked super well, we might see a huge increase in participation. I think we've seen a significant increase, but it's not. There are still a lot of students who are, bringing a meal from home and that kind of thing, which is fine. We just weren't sure what number to pick in there. The other reason that costs were a little lower last year than anticipated is that when we did our mid-year estimates for you in January, we didn't yet have numbers. So in January last year, we said it might cost about 27 million instead of 29 million. And in fact, our numbers came in, the final cost was about 24.5 million for the meals we served last year. And a lot of that was due to free and reduced students continuing to participate at a higher rate than paid students. We weren't sure what was going to happen, and so we assumed that all students in all categories would participate in the same rates. But in actuality, free and reduced students participated at a higher rate, which allowed those costs to come down even more. So yeah.
What happens to that 5.5 million in between what we appropriated and what it actually costs?
Yeah, so I've just been talking with some folks just this week to try and figure out the answer to that. And it sounds like we do need to do a reversion of those funds. So we'll be working on that to do that formally for you all, so that those can be incorporated back into the education fund.
By the looks of things that'll be good.
Yeah, that'll certainly be helpful. And then when we look at school year 23-24, we had estimated this fall that we might come in at 26.5 million for this year. At this point, our estimates are actually even lower than that. And I think we'll be presenting a new estimate either later today or early next week to potentially be included in the Budget Adjustment Act. The reason that costs are lower this year than the original estimates is because of a bunch of changes made at the federal level. So I'm going to start talking about those because those are really good news for Vermont going forward, and I've already had some really positive impacts for this year. So first of all, you might remember us talking last year about how the Agency of Education and the Department of Vermont Health Access had applied to participate in USDA's direct certification through Medicaid pilot. And we were approved to participate in that. And over the last year, worked really hard to get that set up and started actually sharing that information with schools in August. So that means that we're able to get the information about all the kids participating, all the kids who live in households participating in Medicaid, who have a household income under 130% of the federal poverty level and under 185% of the federal poverty level. And that allows us to give that information to the schools and the schools to directly certify those children for free and reduced price meals without having to get applications from families. And because we have a really high Medicaid uptake in Vermont, that program has been extremely successful. We were making a few predictions about that last year for you, and we've seen that those hopeful predictions have come true. And so it looks like we're basically effectively able to replace all of those applications that we used to get with direct cert through Medicaid information. So we didn't make a big push on households to return applications this year because we had all that Medicaid data and we really didn't need them to return the applications nearly as much as we had in the past.
How long, Rosie, will those things hold? Is this an annual thing or 5 years?
It's basically a permanent pilot. So once we're in, we're able to just continue using it. USDA, it's not a nationwide thing. States have to apply to participate in it. So not all states participate in it. But now that we're in, it's basically good until Congress or USDA changes anything at the federal level, but it's not anticipated that they would.
That's good.
Yeah. And so now we've got that whole process set up. So we're sharing that information with schools on a monthly basis. One thing that does make this year better in terms of having higher numbers of students directly certified through Medicaid is that the information was shared starting in August. And once a child becomes directly certified, they're directly certified through the entire school year. And I know that DVHA was expecting to see over the course of this year, as they had to start doing verification for Medicaid, they were expecting to see some households start dropping off of that. And so our numbers may be higher this year than they are next year. But that is mitigated by the fact that we're able to use those numbers from this year to get schools participating in the community eligibility provision. And that once you're in a CEP cycle, that is good for 4 years. So it's possible 5 years from now, our Medicaid direct cert rates will be a little bit lower because maybe fewer families will be participating in Medicaid at those income levels in that year, and that might cause things to be our numbers to be a little bit lower. But that's looking so far out at this point that I'm not sure we could really make a prediction about that. So for the next several years, we'll be able to use these really advantageous numbers from this year. And that is in part because USDA also made a federal rule change regarding the community eligibility provision. So you might remember that this is one of the 2 universal meals options that are available. One is the community eligibility provision and the other is provision 2. And the community eligibility provision is the more advantageous option. That's when you take the number of students who are directly certified and you multiply that by 1.6, and that gives you your free claiming rate, and then the rest of the meals are claimed at the paid rate. There's less paperwork in this option, and that 1.6 multiplier generally means it is more advantageous to the school, and that we're drawing down more federal money than we would be if it was just based on applications, as it is in provision 2.
What, do you have, any, student count numbers? Are we feeding 60% or 85% or how?
Yeah, I was just working on that earlier today, and I don't actually have, it's more in the 60% range for lunch. I didn't finish out that calculation, but I can certainly send that information when I finish making that calculation. I expect to do that later today.
Or to us, Brian, Senator Campion's, of course, here in this committee. So we spend a little time together every day to kind of keep track of that.
Yeah, so you're talking about the number of students eating. What we also have is the number of students who qualify for free and reduced price meals. Both important metrics. Happy to give you both of those. I am going to talk now about this number of students qualifying for free and reduced price meals, because that has changed as a result of this CEP rule change. So previously, USDA only allowed schools to participate in CEP if at least 40% of their students were directly certified for free and reduced price meals. So direct certification is when we find out that a child is eligible for free and reduced price meals from a source other than an application. So it used to be mostly SNAP information, Three Squares for Vermont, or TANF, Reach Up, information that would directly certify students. And then we had a couple other categories like state placed foster students, homeless, migrant, runaway, and Head Start. So we only look at that. And then previously, if a school had 40% or more of their students in that category, in those categories, then they could qualify for CEP and use that multiplier. In late September, USDA issued their final rule, lowering that threshold for participation in CEP from 40% to 25%. And so that meant that many, many more of our Vermont schools are eligible to participate in CEP. Normally, that wouldn't have gone into effect until next school year because of the normal timeframes for CEP. But we applied for a waiver, and USDA approved that waiver to do mid-year implementation of CEP using that rule change. So initially, we started doing that using the information from last April, which is what USDA initially told us we needed to do. That's normally, CEP is normally based on April information. And that, of course, was from before we started doing the direct certification through Medicaid pilot. So we did have many more schools who were eligible, but they weren't able to use all of the new information about the Medicaid direct cert students. So using that, we had about 104 newly eligible, 73 schools who were newly eligible to participate in CEP this fall. So we validated those schools, got them all set up. And then in late November, USDA let us know that actually they had the flexibility to allow us to use the new data, the September data from this year, which included all that new direct certification data. So using that information, we went through and validated, and we're still in the process of validating schools using September data, and that allowed a bunch more schools to qualify. So far, that rule change means that we have 109 newly eligible schools for CEP that have started CEP this year. So 228 of our schools, or about 2/3 of our schools, more than 2/3 of our schools, are using CEP this year as a result of that mid-year implementation. So that, of course, means that all of those schools are able to use that 1.6 multiplier. And that, combined with the Medicaid direct cert pilot and all that new information, means that our statewide free and reduced percentage is much higher than it was previously. So before COVID, when we were, charging for meals, we had a statewide free and reduced percentage around like 38, 39%. And then last year, when we started universal meals and fewer families returned applications, we had a free and reduced percentage around 34%. So that meant generally that the federal government was paying for about 34% of the meals, but then the remainder were being paid for by state funds. And after this big rule change, we're actually seeing that our statewide free and reduced percentage in December, after we've validated everybody, will be above 50%. So that means that more than 50% of the meals will be paid for by the federal government completely. So that is amazing news for.
Do
what's
they pay, the feds pay more, right? They pay, if you have a free meal or a free or reduced meal, it's more than if you just walk in and have to pay for your meal. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the feds actually provide some reimbursement for each type of meal. There is they basically fully they pay the full what's called the full free reimbursement rate for the free meals. For the reduced price meals, they pay that amount minus 40 cents for lunch and 30 cents for breakfast, which the state has long paid for out of general fund. And actually, one of the things that we're seeing is that in CEP schools, there's no reduced price category because the meals are either free or paid. So because more than 2/3 of our schools are now going to be CEP, that state appropriation is going to be able to be lowered for the reduced price meals. There'll be just far fewer reduced price meals. So we will come back to you with a revision on that in future budget asks. And then for the paid meals, the federal government does subsidize those meals a little bit, but that is where most of the state money is coming from. In a pricing program, the family would pay for the remainder of that meal, but under the universal meals law, the state pays for that. So having a higher free and reduced percentage is only a good thing when it comes to the amount of state money that we're putting towards this program. So we are working on a revised estimate. Again, we're still validating all those CEP schools that we just got the information on in December. But we're working on a revised estimate for you all of what this year will be, and estimating that it'll be significantly lower than the 26.5 million that we had previously estimated for this year. And then going forward next year, expecting the same thing, because all of the schools that are currently participating in CEP this year, they will have the option of either continuing on with that cycle at the existing rate that they're currently at, or if their numbers in April are better, next year they'll be able to start a new cycle with those better numbers. So for the next few years, it really can only get better. The one thing that will potentially tick costs up a little bit next year, we can't just take the per meal rate from this year and multiply it all out, is that USDA does update the per meal reimbursement rates every single year based on some inflation factors. And we're not sure yet what the reimbursement rates will be next year. And the state universal meal supplement is tied to the difference between the federal and the state, the federal free and the federal paid reimbursement rate. And so we saw quite a big jump in that difference from last year to this year because of inflation factors. And it's possible we'll see another big increase there this year. We're still working on those estimates. And so that's the one thing that could make things cost a little bit more than anticipated, but it's still, I don't think will exceed our initial estimates or even the 26.5 that we've got in there as a placeholder for next year. So that's all good news in terms of cost to the state. Other good news about all of that is that a higher free and reduced percentage makes more schools eligible for something called area eligibility. So when you take the percentage of students who are directly certified and you multiply it by 1.6, that gets you your free claiming percentage. If that exceeds 50%, that school qualifies as area eligible. And that means that during the summertime, that school and any locations in the attendance area of that school can qualify to operate open meal sites. And that means that any children 18 and under can come and get a meal for free at that open summer meal site. So based on all these changes, we're thinking that we're going to have at least 87 schools who are newly eligible to be area eligible next year or next summer. And so that just means many, many more locations in the state that will be able to offer free meals to all children during the summer months. So that's very exciting. A lot of schools want to offer free summer meals in the summer, but they haven't previously qualified as area eligible. So they've had to do things like, only offer the meals to a certain group of kids at a summer camp or that kind of thing. And so now they'll be able to be open meal sites. And that
Just want to quickly, if I could, Rosie, that's a Monday through Friday situation, right? Or are
not
weekends?
necessarily. It can operate on the weekends.
Oh.
And we do have some sites that operate on the weekends in the summer.
How many schools will qualify?
So we'll have 87 additional schools qualifying from our previous numbers. I don't have the previous numbers offhand, but it's, we only have 300 some odd schools. So that's obviously a significant increase. Yeah. So we'll have increased area eligibility in the summer, and that combines with another recent federal change, which was actually in place last summer, and we did use it last summer, but we'll be able to really take advantage of the increased area eligibility and use that more this summer. And that is the USDA change to allow for non-congregate summer meals in rural areas. And under USDA's definitions, most of Vermont qualifies as a rural area. The exceptions being most of Chittenden County and parts of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. So in most of the state, we're able to offer open meal sites where children can come eat on site and pick up meals. But then we can also offer these non-congregate meals where children can come and take meals home with them. Or we can do delivery of meals on a bus route or to mobile meal stops. And that also allows us to offer multiple days worth of meals at one time. So a family could come and pick up, 5 days worth of meals, depending on how that meal site is working. And that can be breakfast and lunch. And then it can also be, a kind of a unitized meal. So, your sandwich, your milk, your fruit kind of as a meal, or it can be what's called bulk meals, where instead of giving you pre-made sandwiches, we give you a loaf of bread and a whole bunch of sliced cheese and a gallon of milk, and a bag of apples or whatever our fruit option is, to meet the meal pattern. But rather than making unitized meals. So those are all options we have now that we didn't have previously. And because of the increase in area eligibility, there's just a lot more locations in the state where we'll be able to offer that. Now, all of that is contingent. Go ahead.
How does that word get out about like the summer meals program? Do you work with NOR, and how does that word get out to the school districts and the hot lunch programs?
Yeah, well, we certainly work with Hunger Free Vermont on that. They keep a really nice part of their website that shows that information. We also share that information with USDA, and they put that into a national mapping website called the Meal Finder. So families can go to that address or that website and type in their address and find the closest summer meal sites. And those could be, in New Hampshire or New York, folks on border counties can cross into other states. The summer meals program is really wonderfully flexible, where at open meal sites, it's any kid 18 and under, and it doesn't really matter where you live to access those sites. So we use the Meal Finder. We give the information to 211, so families can call 211. And then at the end of the school year, schools are also required to share out the information about meal sites that they know about in their area, or at the very least, share out the USDA Meal Finder information for families. And then we also do things like, there's posters and signage that sites will put up in their communities to direct families. But certainly, we want you all to know about it. If you're hearing from constituents over the summer months who are having difficulty with food, the summer meal sites are a great place for kids to access food during the summer. Now, the other piece on that that we might need your help with is that in order to operate these summer meal sites, we need community partners. So all of these sites are now going to be eligible to operate open summer meal sites, but that's only good if someone locally decides, yeah, we're going to go ahead and operate a site. And so often that's a school district. They're usually the best set up already. They're already set up with us to receive those funds and apply more streamlined, more easily. And they obviously already have facilities and staff. But it also can be community partners. So the summer meal sites can be operated by nonprofit organizations, by local governments. We like to see sites anywhere that kids congregate in the summer. So libraries, pools, rec departments, all of those are great places to operate open summer meal sites. So if you're hearing from folks in your community who want to know what they can do, please send them our way. We would really like to talk to local community partners about opening up additional meal sites in their communities, especially because we have this ability now with these additional area eligible sites.
That's good. That's good. That's great. Yeah.
The other piece of area eligibility is that that also allows us, all those additional schools that are now area eligible are also allowed to offer free meals to all, or free after school snacks to all students through the after school snack program, or they can also participate in the at-risk after school meals program through the child and adult care food program to offer after school suppers. So that is another area for growth in our state now. We have all these additional locations that are eligible. So we will be, reaching out to all the schools that are now newly eligible and asking if they're interested in starting these programs. But especially if you have an existing after school activity program, this is a really good program to take advantage of. So, the kids are there after school doing activities, but then they can also get a snack or potentially a supper if that program works in combination with the child nutrition programs. So that's something that we're hoping to see grow over the next year as well, because we have this additional eligibility. So that is kind of the overview of all those new rule changes and how they're impacting things. I did want to talk to you about just a little bit of additional some changes we're seeing as a result of the Universal Meals Law. You did have a bunch of discussion last year about how to handle independent schools. We came back to you looking for some clarity on that. And you decided specifically that so the pilot year law said that independent schools, you would only provide the universal meal supplement if they offered free meals to all students, and you would only provide the supplement for children who are publicly tuitioned. And we asked you last year for clarity on how you wanted us to handle independent schools that were sites under public school food authorities. And we have a number of these around the state where, there's a small independent school and the public school district in their area kind of takes that site under their wing and offers the school meals program at that site and takes responsibility for it. And that is allowed in the federal programs, and it's something that we encourage because it's just more efficient administratively. And so you clarified for us that we should treat those independent schools exactly the same as independent schools who are their own school food authority. And so we had 2 independent schools that had previously been operating under public school food authorities. St. Michael's School in Brattleboro had been operating under Windham Northeast Supervisory Union, and Christ the King in Rutland had been operating under Rutland City School District. And after that change, the meals at those schools would only be reimbursed for the publicly tuitioned students. And so very few of those meals would be reimbursed with the state funds. And so as a result of that, those schools have since left the program. They're no longer part of those public school food authorities. Our understanding was that they intended to come on as their own school food authority. They've started to work through the paperwork on that, but they haven't finished it. And so at this point in the year, they're not participating in the programs at all. So it's obviously a concern for us whenever we lose anybody participating in the program, and just wanted to flag that for you all, that that was something that happened as a result of that clarification.
Yeah, Brian has a
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for this, Rosie. So, can you loop back to those schools or somebody and just touch base with them? I know you expressed, concern that they dropped out of the program and they may be working on a different application. Is there a way to loop back and see if they need help?
Yeah, we have.
Oh.
We definitely have reached out a number of times and said, do you need help? Are you working on it?
Thank you. I'm not surprised that you've done that. Thank you very much.
It seems to be a little bit of a staffing capacity issue. Previously the public school food authorities conducted all the administration of the program. And there's not, I think they're probably struggling a little bit with having the administrative capacity to take this on their own, which is not particularly surprising. It's a lot to administer as a single building. But we are continuing to reach out. We've been trying to encourage the Catholic schools in general to group together as one school food authority, which we think would be more administratively efficient, and is certainly allowable under the programs. And I think they may intend to go there in the future, but it's just been kind of slow to get that transition going.
Those children get hungry just like all children, so it would be good to get that straightened out so they can provide meals, that's for sure.
And that's really a policy decision on your end. You made the policy decision last year that you only wanted to provide that supplement for the publicly tuitioned students. The religious schools in general have fewer publicly tuitioned students than other independent schools. So for example,
conversation.
Yeah, Camden's taking the blame for messing that up.
So
we'll straighten him out.
Other independent schools, for example, the academies are all participating, and they have lots of publicly tuitioned students. And so it is much more efficient for them. They have some students who aren't publicly tuitioned, but in general, those are students who are paying tuition, or able to pay tuition, and so they're able to incorporate the meal charge into that tuition charge. And I will say that in general, we have had some interest from other independent schools in joining the program. So folks who have more publicly tuitioned students are now interested in this program. So it's not, I just lost my video here.
Sorry.
I don't know where my video went, but I can keep talking here. It's not that
you can start it again. My apologies.
That's okay. So it's not that this is something that is universally true for independent schools. It just depends on how many publicly tuitioned students they have. And again, there has been some interest from independent schools that weren't previously participating in the program in starting because of this. I think the last thing I would just tell you is that I also worked on, as part of the state's emergency response to the flooding this summer, as part of the State Emergency Operations Center, on mass feeding efforts and making sure that folks who were impacted by the flooding had access to meals, especially because, folks who were displaced from their homes and folks who had their kitchens damaged, or, grocery store access disrupted. And that was a very stressful couple months trying to make sure that we had resources available for folks. And I really breathed a sigh of relief once school started in the fall, because I knew that that was one group of folks that we no longer needed to worry as much about. That kids had access to 2, maybe 3 meals a day, but at least 2 meals a day at their schools. And that, we still needed to do a lot of work to ensure that their families had places to access the other meals. But that was kind of a surprising consequence of this that I just wanted to flag for you all. That just it was an additional safety net that I didn't quite realize we had until school started, and we were able to implement that. So that's what I had as far as an update for you about how the universal meals policy is going. What other questions do you have on that?
Yeah, questions from the
You
committee?
do a great job.
No, that was terrific,
Yeah.
Rosie. It even sounded better the second time.
I've had practice now.
No, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
So
we'll
it's
have
great.
you back again next week so you can run us up. No.
I did want to flag for you as well. We did submit the annual local foods incentive report to you all a week or 2 ago. And that is our annual report on how the local foods incentive grant that was really came out of this committee, how that's going and what schools have gotten funds for that. I wasn't planning to talk a lot about that today, but I did want to just flag it for you all. It's a very thorough report. There's some suggestions in there for things that you might do to make schools more successful in their local purchasing. So definitely take a look at that if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. Any questions from committee members?
Terrific.
Well, Rosie, we did our work over here, but you were the ones that implemented it and at the agency and you should be congratulated on taking a mess of stuff from us and making it all work. Because it goes to show if you work together in a good way, you can really do good things for the people. So thanks a lot for all your hard work, and we certainly appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you, Rosie.
So, Nora, would you like to comment on how your perspective of the school meals program, because you've been dogging this for years. Finally
Very true.
got us to do
As have
something.
you, Senator Starr.
Yeah.
Thank you all for having me. I'm Honora Horton, and I'm the Executive Director of Hunger Free Vermont and a resident of Williston, Vermont. And thank you for having me here to join Rosie and talking about the success of Act 64, Vermont's permanent universal school meals program, which this committee has also been dogging for many, many years, right along with me. So this success is really your success, and on behalf of all the families in Vermont, I thank you for that. So you heard from Rosie the data, the numbers. So I'm not going to go over that again. I would like to say also that the Agency of Education, Rosie's team, the Child Nutrition Programs Department there, has done an extraordinary job of thinking through what needed to be in Act 64 and working with all of you to make sure that those key components were in there. Rosie mentioned this, but I don't think she quite blew her own horn enough and the agency's own horn enough. Vermont's implementation of permanent universal school meals is the best implementation. Our law is the best law of any of the ones that have been passed, any of the 8 that have been passed nationally. And it's because of the care and thought and collaboration that went into it. And the Agency of Education has done a phenomenal job of implementing.
You aren't
Yeah.
saying that just because you're from Vermont.
No, it's really true.
Good.
And I'm proud to be from Vermont, especially when talking about Act 64. So I'm not gonna tell you, I'm not gonna give you any more numbers. What I would like to do instead is share with you the experiences of the people on the ground in our schools who are implementing this Universal School Meals Program every day with the students. So I asked some folks some of whom came and testified before you all last year from our school nutrition programs and our education programs to share with me some words that they would like you to hear. And that is what I'm going to share with you as my testimony. So I hope that as you listen to these words, that you are hearing them as a profound expression of gratitude to this committee for all of your hard work over 3 sessions, plus a whole lot of other stuff before that, to pass this game-changing law for students, families, and schools. Universal Meals in Vermont has helped so many families. This program has not only improved access to nutrition for children, but also helped to ensure that families can allocate funds to other important expenses such as housing and healthcare. Universal School Meals has created a more inclusive and supportive environment where children feel accepted and can focus on their education without worrying about where their next meal will come from. By giving our students access to healthy and satisfying breakfast and lunch options, we can set them up for success in the classroom. My family has certainly benefited from the program, and I know many folks in our community feel the same way. And that is from Kelly White, a site coordinator at Essex Westford School District. From Stephanie Gates, the food service director for Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union. The students' expressions of gratitude serve as validation for the effort invested in enacting universal school meals into legislation. Universal School Meals has promoted inclusivity among students, alleviated financial worries about school meals for families, and delivered substantial advantages to our community. From Carol Kent, the food services director for Lamoille North Supervisory Union. Universal School Meals has changed the culture of school meals at Lamoille North SU. In our middle and high school, meal times are far less stressful for students. They come through our lines with healthy, delicious food choices. They interact with our cashiers with friendliness, lively banter, and gratitude, where in the past there had been some trepidation, fear, and shame. My 40-year-old daughter was at a gathering with other moms, and the talk was all about how great it was that they do not have to rush their kids in the morning to get breakfast into them, knowing that they can have breakfast with their friends at school. For families, it has relieved some stress from the morning rush. It is a joy every day to see children just enjoying meal times together. Regardless of income levels, they all have the same choices. And Scott Fay, food services director for Essex Westford. With Vermont's Universal School Meals program, schools are able to focus on producing quality meals and providing excellent service to students. Cash collection and the process of collecting on bad debt associated with paid meal programs has historically put wedges between schools and families in need of support. With Universal School Meals, we don't create barriers between families in need and schools. We build bridges. And Harley Sterling, Nutrition Director for Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union. Universal School Meals has helped make our cafeterias a place where students feel safe and welcome. They come to school every day knowing their basic needs will be taken care of. For our younger students, they live in a world that has never shamed and stigmatized them for not having lunch money. Some of the most sincere gratitude comes from our teachers and staff who see the sea change in school culture. As a border community, many of our teachers live in New Hampshire and send their children to schools without universal school meals. For them, the contrast could not be more stark. Not only is universal school meals money back in the pockets of Vermont working families who no longer have to pack meals or worry about lunch money. Their kids get to go to schools where meals are enjoyed by everyone who wants them, stress-free.
Oh, and, yeah, I don't know about the other committee members, we haven't chatted about, but I attend quite a few meetings in off session. And I don't think I've been to one meeting in the last year or two that somebody somewhere, sometime during that meeting has mentioned how supportive they are of what we did in regards to universal meals. I haven't had one person say anything bad about it either, which is, you know, the ordinary conversation is, you know, what are you crazies doing in Montpelier? Yeah, I don't get that really too often. You know, it was a good piece of legislation and, you know, with the help of you folks and the agency, we all worked together very well. And, we got good votes for it here in the legislature. And, no, it's gone very well. And those numbers that we got this morning from Rosie, yeah, I would expect, I mean, Washington is Washington, but it won't be too many years, but they'll just pay the bill. You know, they'll have a free meals program nationwide and you know, I've always said, if you take care of your children and your elders, you know, the middle will be fine. And, so it's worked good. Anything else, Anna?
Well, I would also just like to underscore the incredible opportunity that the design of Act 64 is now going to provide to expand free summer and after school meals.
Yeah.
So, and Hunger Free Vermont, we maintain that, you know, updated locations of every single summer meal site in the state on our website, as Rosie said, but we also will be actively, we raise private funding to do paid advertising to let people know about summer meal sites. We're going to be doing a really big push in collaboration with the Agency of Education this summer, and with the expanded after school programming funding that is now available. That is also going to bring many more children into after school and summer programming, which is very, very important. But we have to make sure that while those kids are in that programming, they are being well fed. And so this expanded opportunity to add federally paid for after school and summer meals is really a critical piece to the success of making sure that more kids have access to after school and summer programming. And so we're working closely with Vermont After School as well on making sure that those two things, meals and programming, are going to go together. And we have so much more opportunity now to make that happen.
Well, the other part of this whole discussion is, you know, local foods and getting those into the schools and, you know, the farm to plate and farm to school issues. We haven't gotten a report yet in regards to how that's helping our farmers have an outlet for their food to give to our children, and that's very important. You know, we have fresh, wholesome food grown right here at home that hasn't had to sit in a cooler for months and ride across country on a truck or a train to go. So that's the other important side of all this discussion.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, when this committee drafted a kind of put together that first bill, it was universal school meals, the local food purchasing incentive, and
Yeah.
increased funding for the farm to school and early childhood grants program. And even though the bill got split up and all those three things traveled differently, this legislature passed all three of those and funded all three of those components. And our vision was always farm fresh school meals for all, right? And we have the pieces in place to make that happen. And I think the local food purchasing incentive report is hopeful and identifies also, I mean, we've had the pandemic, the flooding,
Oh.
there have been some real challenges
Yeah.
to our local food producers. But those components are going to keep working together, I believe, over time to really grow the ability of schools to buy and use more local food. And just a couple days ago, I was in here with some other folks presenting the Vermont food security roadmap to you all. And this legislation, Act 64, I mean, this is exactly the kind of legislation that we're talking about that is going to make it possible for us to have food security by 2035, and not just any kind of food security, but homegrown, Vermont-grown food security with an agricultural system that's climate resilient and where there are local outlets for farmers to sell their produce. And schools are our biggest restaurants in every one of our towns. So we should never forget that.
Thanks, Senator. Yeah, that's a great point. We talk about impacts on, trying to play our role to reduce carbon. If you've got truck going a mile rather than 100 miles to bring fresh fruits or vegetables or 1,000 or whatever, that's a
And then
big
going
change.
half
And then going,
back empty.
right, yeah. No, I love that part of the bill.
Everything works to the advantage of things that we've been working on for years.
Yeah, it is a very good coming together.
Roads stay better if you have less traffic, and every track there. So, no, it's been a long,
How many years have you been on this? 10 years?
Been a
Yeah.
decade,
been a
Wow, that's
long
incredible.
time.
yeah.
That's
But,
incredible.
I think when that happens, you appreciate it more at the end. It's easy to ram a bill through. I've always found it fairly easy to ram a bill through. But this thing, I mean, we've worked on it and you really appreciate the accomplishment more. Because it's been a long haul. And, but, if you can feed these children and these private schools, there's only a hand. And why shouldn't those little kids eat right along with the rest of the kids? And we'll try to get that straightened out. Some people get all torqued up. Well, it's a private school and they're paying to send their kids there. I'll be able to afford to feed them. Well, I don't care if they can afford or not. Those people are paying their taxes right along with everyone else, and those children should be able to have free meals with the rest of the children. We'll get that fixed, right, Brian?
Well, you've got that seat down the hall, which always helps.
Well, Richie's right there.
Yeah.
So, 2 out of 7 isn't bad, a bad place to start. Yeah. So any other comments or?
Oh, well done.
So good.
Well done.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
guys make a good team.
Well done, all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Ollie, look at that clock. I can't believe we're on time. It's unusual. So we have a group of people with us from the Northeast Kingdom Collaborative this morning. And, they're gonna be with us for, a half hour or so, I hope. And, if we squeeze our break and, I'd like to welcome, each of you, to our meeting this morning. This is the Senate Agricultural Committee. And some of you have been listening to probably to what we heard this morning. And so I don't know if you got here early enough to get the introductions, but we'll quickly introduce ourselves and then we'll have you folks introduce yourself. And we'll see what you got for questions, and concerns, and we'll go from there. So it's great to have you with us, Brian.
Yep. Brian Collmore representing the Rutland District.
Irene Renner, Chittenden North, which includes Fairfax.
Brian Campion, Bennington District. Rich Westwood, Little William District.
And I'm Bobby Starr representing Orleans County and 4 towns in Caledonia County. So welcome, and if you folks would like to introduce yourselves, we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Jenna O'Farrell. I'm the Executive Director of Northeast Kingdom Community Action.
Morning.
I'm Cheryl McVetti. I'm the principal in Lunenburg School.
I'm Catherine Cusack, the Executive Director of Green Mountain Farm to School based out in Newport.
I'm Tanika Stewart. I'm the Child Nutrition Director for Caledonia Central Supervisory Union.
Well, welcome, folks, and I don't know if any order, we don't have any order down here, so there isn't any official order for you folks to jump in, but if one of you wants to lead off, we'd be glad to hear from you.
I can start if that's okay with the team
Sure.
here. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Senator Starr, for inviting us this morning and all the work that the committee has done. It's amazing. I'm, as I said, Jenna O'Farrell. I live in St. Johnsbury, and for 5.5 years, I've been the Executive Director of Northeast Kingdom Community Action, which serves Caledonia, Orleans, and Essex County. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about Vermont school meals. And I don't know how much, I'm sure you know about community action in all of your counties. In the Northeast Kingdom, we are the leading organization addressing poverty through education, community collaborations, and essential services. Our services include food insecurity, financial well-being, homelessness, warmth, early education, restorative justice, community reintegration, and employment. Throughout the pandemic and local disasters, such as the July flooding, we increased critical support and services to the most vulnerable Vermonters. In the Northeast Kingdom, we operate 4 emergency food pantries: Newport, Canaan, Island Pond, and St. Johnsbury, 2 mobile units that are out in the most rural areas delivering food, and we partner with a rural food delivery program in Orleans County. On a community level, we provide supplemental food assistance and support Vermonters in applying for 3 Squares benefits. In our 8 Head Start locations that are located throughout the Northeast Kingdom in some of the most rural communities, we always have provided meals and snacks at no cost to our families. Fortunately, NEC is not the only organization providing food assistance, and the need has grown exponentially over the past 4 years for all of our families, not just those living at or below the federal poverty level. We serve many families seeking food assistance for the first time and families that do not qualify for any other benefits because their income exceeds their eligibility criteria and they still cannot afford to feed their children. A major partner in addressing childhood hunger are our schools, where all children receive free school meals. I'm sure no one disagrees that food is a human right and our children deserve to be nourished. Providing free meals to our youngest Vermonters is not just the right thing to do, it's an upstream investment in our future. I cannot imagine the impact on our children and families if free meals were not available at schools. And I'm sure that you all know this data, but it is fascinating to think about. The average cost of providing lunch and breakfast for a child in Vermont would be $4.58 a day. And if you think about a family having 2 elementary grade students annually, that would have a savings or disposable or discretionary income for them at about $1,600. Free school meals afford families the opportunity to allocate these financial resources differently. Money that families previously spent on feeding their children breakfast and lunch are now available to spend and improve the quality of their life and the quality of the food that they can provide, pay debt, manage household expenses, afford childcare, own and drive vehicles. The way they can invest the money is endless. In Canaan, Vermont, which is one of our most rural communities in the corner of the Northeast Kingdom, we assisted NECA 37 households in that area. Our food shelf turned over 28,000 pounds of food last year, with approximately 120 individuals out of a population of 340. Essex County has unique challenges. The NEK Choice District was formed in 2018, and there's currently 1 high school, 4 elementary schools in a region that's 664 square miles. Many children are transported a significant distance to their schools, and Essex County is a food desert with no major grocer in the entire county. Free school meals become integral to rural areas with unique challenges. Anecdotally, and Anor touched on this as well, I think there's a tremendous benefit of free meals that's not easily quantified, and it's the quality of parent-child relationships. If you've ever parented or had the responsibility of shopping, buying, organizing, and preparing school meals for your children, it's a daunting task that can be riddled with tension and strife. Without the daily struggle, parental stress is decreased. Additionally, in Vermont, we have a law, 16 VSA 136, that mandates physical education in our schools because we value physical education. But we also know that physical education alone doesn't prove healthy outcomes for children. So coupled with providing healthy, balanced, free meals, children have a better chance of having stronger health outcomes. Finally, I don't think anybody disagrees with the philosophy of feeding children, and I'm proud of our commitment to ending childhood hunger in Vermont and hopeful that we can sustain these efforts into the future. And thank you for your time this morning.
Well, thank you very much. Great testimony, and it's hard to believe there's not one major food store in Essex County. That's something. So who would like any questions or?
No, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Who would like to go next? Any particular time schedule for anybody?
I can go next before I have any issues in my building.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Again, I'm Cheryl McVetti. I'm the principal at Lunenburg School. This is my 8th year as principal here, and I totally appreciate the universal meals. We are high poverty, a lot of food insecurities. And we also receive 160 backpacks per month from the Vermont Food Bank. And we have our students who ask for them weekly, so they're needed. That number has been restricted to only enrolled students. It used to be we could also hand them out if they had younger siblings at home. So that number has been capped. And, for other things that we've tried to build within the Lunenburg community, 5 years ago, using some funds from the Vermont Principals Grant that I got, we established a food shelf at the town clerk's office, and that continues to be maintained and utilized by community members. So that's really important. So my testimony is short and sweet. I jumped onto this yesterday. I said, okay, I'll do this. So it's my first time, and I appreciate the work everybody has done. And these meals are certainly vital to our school. And I appreciate all the work everyone's done. And thank you.
And thanks for your comments. Could you elaborate a little bit on is it the backpack program that got cut or something?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, cut or restricted. We could use more than 160 per month. And my admin assistant does the work to order all of these. And he said that it's restricted now, that it can only be for our enrolled students. If we have some younger students, younger children at home, we can't send them home, the extra ones with them. It's only for the enrolled students that we have.
Yeah. Well, we can certainly check that situation out, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cheryl, how many students are in K through 5 in Lunenburg?
We have just under 60 now.
Okay. And you saw, and we've heard great testimony this morning, a difference for real between what used to be, breakfast and lunch and what it is there now?
Yes, definitely. And the snack program, we have snacks for the kids and they're very healthy, a lot of fruit and vegetables, and yeah, very important. And our after school program also gets the meals as well.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other?
Yep.
So we'll move on to.
I can go.
Yeah, okay, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to hear from us. I'm Catherine Cusack, the Executive Director at Green Mountain Farm to School in Newport. And I, like to focus my moments here focusing on the local food purchasing incentive. Certainly high accolades for the universal school meals, and have seen, a ripple effect of that. Just to give you a brief background, our organization owns and operates a food hub, aggregation and distribution food hub. Our mission is centered around healthy food access, local food access. In addition, we do some farm to school education and some other things that I'm happy to talk to you about another time. But I really think the relevant program that we operate is our Farm Direct Food Hub, and the benefits we've seen and are experiencing firsthand with universal school meals, which is just expanding school budgets and allowing them to purchase local food from us. We're currently serving 44 NEK schools. 14 of those were first-time purchasers in 2023.
Wow.
A lot to do with the local purchasing incentive, and then the local food incentive grant that is being funneled through the Agency of Ag using federal dollars. Overall, we serve 147 schools throughout Vermont. In 2023, those schools purchased $179,000 worth of local food from us. That's 80% of that is returned directly to the farmer.
Ms. Cusack, do you mind repeating that dollar amount?
179,000.
Great.
That's good.
That is good.
And that's just our little food hub.
Yeah. We love that. That's great.
Yeah, that's great. And, I had my staff go back a few years, we're building back up to pre-pandemic levels. In 2021, that number was 90,000, which was like right in the middle of the pandemic. And so we've doubled that volume in the last 2 years to schools, and where a lot of that money is supporting NEK farms, but we're obviously not sourcing solely from the NEK. The NEK farms that we are sourcing from, are a lot of dairy, a meat producer, and produce. So schools are ordering, the full plate of food from our food hub, and it's just fantastic. And that local purchasing incentive has increased their buying power. We have had feedback about qualifying for that local purchasing incentive, and some of our smaller rural schools are challenged with that 15% threshold when they apply. I'm not sure how much in the nitty-gritty you're familiar with, but that schools need to do to become eligible for the local purchasing incentive. There's some limitations around schools, needing to unify and apply as a school district. That presents challenges for them when they're spread out and they don't have like one point person doing that work. And so one school within a supervisory union may be meeting that threshold and maybe, raring to go and wanting to take advantage, but because there needs to be a unified supervisory wide application, that is preventing some barriers there. So I don't know if there's some, other considerations for how people or how schools are applying for that local purchasing incentive, or how they're meeting that threshold in order to apply. We're excited about the local food we call it LFS, and it is escaping me what that LFS stands for. It's local food something, through the Agency of Ag. They applied and received money from the USDA, and our food hub is one of the food hubs that's helping to, funnel that money kind of into local food back to the schools. And the great thing about that is that they're able to use the purchases with LFS to qualify for the LPI, the local purchasing incentive. And so we're slated to finish the LFS program at the end of calendar year of 2024. So we're excited to use that data to help more schools qualify for the local purchasing incentive. But I am hearing, like I said, some challenges around meeting that threshold and the whole application process. I think currently it's 15 schools need to show that they're using 15% of their budget to qualify. That I'd advocate for 10% for some of our smaller schools. They're really working hard at it. And, that little bit of latitude would go a long way. I think, I think the numbers speak for themselves, that the economic, the multiplier effect, I heard a comment around, climate resiliency and reducing food miles, and then just the health of the students that we're serving. The food tastes better. There's less food waste. It's really wonderful that there are a lot of schools that, they want to serve more local food. I think that it's how we can break down the barriers for them to access it. And that's what our food hub and several other smaller food hubs across the state have been working on. So I appreciate your support. The Universal School Meals is great. The local purchasing incentive is great. We see benefits with the farm to school and early childhood education grants. We partnered with NECA, and they purchase food from our food hub to distribute in their food shelves. And that's been a great relationship. We do also source local food for backpack programs and holiday meal baskets. And so far we've done that fundraising on our own to supplement those backpacks. I don't know, if there's thought been given to providing some state funding for, those out of school time meals, which several people have spoken to the benefits of.
Yeah, Brian, you had a comment.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think at some point, be great I might pop up and see your hub. It would be great to see it. It sounds like it's working really well. Maybe on a Monday I'll be in touch and try to zip up there.
Yep, that would be great. The food is actually stored and distributed out of Hardwick.
Oh, it is. Okay, that's actually even easier for me. Yeah. Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
So, Henga, we haven't heard from. You've got to go next. You're the only one left standing.
Hi, my name is Tanika, and I am the food service director for Caledonia Central Supervisory Union. We're 7 schools in the Northeast Kingdom area, ranging from 60 students at a school to 350 at Twinfield, and about the same at Danville. So we range in size pretty significantly, and also geographically. And most of what I want to do is just kind of reiterate a lot of the things that have already been said. But just having been the food service director for the last 3 years, I've really sort of did a lot of the struggling through the COVID stuff and have been able to see the impact of universal school meals. It's been really profound. And I think most of all, as a result of serving more children regardless of their eligibility status, we've been able to turn our attention away from sort of the business part of meal service and focus back on improving the quality and the variety of our food and increasing our local procurement and building those relationships with our farmers. it's given us the time to be able to go back to the basics of being able to do those things again. And I think that that impact has been profound. Just reiterating everything that Rosie had said, just the way that these programs are starting to kind of unfold, and just with the direct certification through the Medicaid pilot and the USDA federal rule change in regards to community eligibility, I can speak to the fact that we are a supervisory union that has been affected in a very positive way this year as a result of both of those changes. Our numbers have skyrocketed in terms of free students who are now eligible because of that direct certification through Medicaid times that 1.6 multiplier. We went from being a supervisory union that had a free and reduced eligibility status of somewhere hovering around 30% to now as a supervisory union over 50%. So that puts a lot of money, a lot of our reimbursement back into the federal scope and away from the costs on state. So I think that we're a great example of the positive benefits of these programs actually working. And a lot of our sites are now actually going to be area eligible schools. And so I've already started working with libraries in our community who are really, really engaged and looking forward to being able to make our sites open sites this summer to be able to provide kids with meals. Because I know that as a food service director and as a mom, at the end of the year, I always get a pit in my stomach sending kids home, not knowing exactly where they're going to get their food, whether it's like what the quality of that food is going to be like. And knowing that we now have this new resource for our area is really profound. So thank you for everything that you've done to make this possible and make our job much more meaningful.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. Maybe a quick question for Jenna. Have you noticed any drop in food hunger since we started the universal meal program from citizens up in the kingdom?
No, I don't. I think that that's more indicative of economic pressures for families, and our largest demographic actually, and most of our food shelves we have an aging population, so we see a lot of people over 55.
Yeah, older, they're folks. Yeah, well, food costs a lot of money, and if they're on Social Security, it doesn't go quite as far as it used to, that's for sure.
Right.
Any other questions from any of you in regards to anything else that we're attempting to do or should be doing that you don't hear about except for on the news? There's we're in our fourth week.
Third, the end of the third.
End of our third week, and we've got quite a few bills coming in. We've been hearing from the different parts of the ag agency and things, and the universal meals program is an issue that actually it was started from trying to get the farm to school stuff, local foods into the hot lunch, and we kept wondering how we were going to do that with what school meals was paying, and I don't know, we came up with the idea, well, if we had universal meals and had everybody that could qualify through the federal program, we'd have more money coming into our meals program. So they would have more money to be able to buy local, fresh, wholesome foods and as some of you heard this morning, that's all going very well, and we've had many obstacles to go over and climb over, but we did get it done, and it really this morning those numbers were quite impressive, and the good parts that are they're coming out of that, saving people money, and you folks commented in regards, well, it leaves them a little bit more money to go to the local grocery store with, or to pay their rent or health payment with. And so hopefully it's made life a little bit better for our citizens, and that's what government's supposed to do, I think. But anyways, have you got anything else from any of you? If not, I don't know what time your collaborative meeting is getting done, but I think it's around 10:30, I think. And well, it's just about 10:30, so thanks a lot for being with us this morning and participating. We certainly appreciate your time and energy. And of course, anytime if you have something you'd like to get hold of us about, feel free to call anytime. And my phone's usually busy, but keep trying and catch up at home even. So thanks again. Enjoy